Joining me now, former White House political director for President Reagan and Republican strategist Ed Rollins, syndicated columnist Miguel Perez, and Michael Goodwin of the New York Daily News. Welcome to all of you. Michael, I want to start with you first because we haven't had a chance to get your thoughts, I guess, on the legacy of Gerald Ford. We have 6 days to reflect on it, and it's been a very rich remembrance so far.
Right. Yeah, I think most of it has gotten it right, which essentially comes down to two things. The first, of course, being the pardon, which I think was the most controversial thing. And the second, of course, just this notion that he was a decent man, a good caretaker for a very turbulent time in history. I think for the pardon especially, it is fascinating because as a young man, I thought it was outrageous. And over time, I've come to believe it was the right thing. I think that's what a lot of people, as we grow older and wiser, hopefully, we do understand that it would have been worse for the country. Didn't matter. It wasn't for Richard Nixon, really. It was for us that he had to be pardoned.
You know, Miguel, it's an interesting time to be talking about presidential legacies because we are in the midst of some really dramatic events happening in this nation's history. And with this president, give me a sense about what's happening right now with President Bush. He's at the ranch. He's talking about a new plan for Iraq. Will Iraq be his legacy? Can he do something with this Iraq plan to change the course of events there?
I think that the plan will determine his legacy. I think that he still has a chance to come up with something positive here. But this is his last chance. He better do something really drastic, dramatical, in terms of really changing the course of things in Iraq. If he doesn't do that, his legacy will go down the drain.
Ed, if you were in his ear, what would you be telling him? What has he got to tell us in the next few weeks?
Well, I think, first of all, I'd tell him to get out of Crawford and get back to Washington, D.C. I think it's very important for the president to look like he's on top of this, and he ought to be in the Pentagon and not in some trailer, which is where he is in
tornado warning
in Texas. And I don't mean that he shouldn't have a holiday, but this is a very serious time. I think he has to basically take this shot with the additional troops. It's the troops that are there being redeployed. I think he's got 6 months to convince the country and the Democrats that they can make a difference and at least stabilize the Baghdad situation. If he can do that, then I think they'll give him a little bit more time.
He's also got this impending execution of Saddam Hussein here right now, so that's going to add to the security situation in the near term, I would suspect. How does the Saddam Hussein issue, the execution, the imminent hanging of Saddam Hussein factor in to at least the near term for the Iraq strategy, if at all?
I think certainly it could cause some outburst in Iraq. I think politically for the president here at home, it's not going to help. It's not going to give everyone a sense that this was a good idea, or it's not going to make all the sins of Iraq disappear. I think that it's almost anticlimactic now.
I wonder if it just brings up how we got there, how we got to this point. Does it start the clock again at the beginning of the war and remind us the path that we've gone here?
It brings it back. Of course, it brings it back. We go back to the beginning. Why did we go there? We have now a report with former President Bush criticizing the reasons why we went in the first place. So it all comes together. Now Iraq and Saddam Hussein and everybody talking about how he's trying to decide how he gets killed. This is a man who never gave a fair trial to his victims,
right.
Never let them choose how they were going to be massacred. So why are we so worried about how this guy lives or how long he lives? It's about time that we just turn the switch.
The only point that I make is I think even the whole execution, which is sort of, I don't want to say it's bungled because obviously it hasn't occurred yet, but the trial, the execution, it makes us once again look like we're not carrying it out the way we should or executing it the way we should. This man clearly has committed atrocities.
Right.
He deserves to be hung, shot, whatever. It should happen. It should not be being dragged out for 2 or 3 days with suspense and all the rest of it. It ought to just happen.
The mysteries of the movements of where he is and who's got him. I thought it was fascinating what Anish Raman was reporting, that a red card is being prepared for him in the death chamber, essentially, because he would prepare a red card for his victims first. Imagine the fear. Imagine, getting the red card from Saddam Hussein and now he's getting one. That, I think, brings back to the fore what it is he's accused of, gassing thousands of Kurds, killing Iraqi civilians.
Well, and one of the things that you see in Iraq that we don't quite understand in this country is the Shiite and the Sunni battles. And one of the interesting things I heard recently is why so many Sunnis who die are tortured by having their holes drilled into their head. It's because Saddam did that to a leading Shiite cleric. And so this is the revenge of drilling holes in people's heads. It's a bizarre culture that we've waded into, a bloody, bloody place. And the sooner we can get rid of him, probably it might help in the long run. But I just think in the short term, it doesn't really matter.
I want to bring in something from an editorial in the Washington Post that Senator Joe Lieberman published. He criticized those who support a troop rollback. Rather than engaging in hand-wringing, carping, or calls for withdrawal, we must summon the vision, will, and courage to take the difficult and decisive steps needed for success and, yes, victory in Iraq. Miguel?
I read Mr. Lieberman's piece. I thought it was very, very good. I wish the president could speak that way, the way Mr. Lieberman wrote that column. I think everybody should read it, and maybe the American people would be convinced to give this another shot, at least one last shot at victory.
I hope Joe Lieberman is right, and I think the problem is that not enough Americans at this point believe in victory, believe that anything we can do will matter. So that's what the president has got to figure out now. If we do X, Y, and Z, if we add more troops, if we do incentives, if we do all kinds of things, will it matter in the end? If it doesn't, there's no point in doing it.
I think the critical thing about his voice, which has been a very loud voice on the war from the beginning, is that I hope he can bring some other Democrats, even though he's now an independent. I hope this is not just a singular Republican presidential effort, that there is a bipartisan effort. Let's try and get this thing done right in the next 6 months. It'd be the best thing that could happen to the Democrats if it does achieve something.
Let's bring in another voice, John Edwards, throwing his hat into the ring, visiting Iowa as part of a six-state announcement tour. This is what he had to say during a town hall meeting.
The truth of the matter is we didn't used to be the country of Guantanamo and Abu Ghraib. You all know this. We were the light. We were the model for the entire world. We were the place. Everybody wanted to be like us, right? Well, we need to be in that place again. And for that to happen, we're going to have to meet our responsibility to the rest of the world.
Have we become, Miguel, the nation of Guantanamo and Abu Ghraib? We're no longer the moral light in the world?
I think it's just rhetoric on his part. Mr. Edwards has never impressed me very much with the two Americas, and it's all rhetoric on his part. I love the lady whose house he used to announce in New Orleans, and where she came out and said, I hope he's not just using my house for publicity.
We're still the country of brave and courageous young people who are there fighting for freedom, and it's not our troops that want to come home. It may not be the will of our country, but right now it's our troops, as it's always been our troops, that basically paid the ultimate price.
Yeah, I don't think John Edwards has any real answers. I mean, what he said there in the clip is just sort of facts. Yes, we have a lot of problems right now, but I don't think John Edwards has answers.
A lot of problems, but still the best game in town is how a lot of people like to talk about it. I want to quickly get to immigration reform for next year, Miguel, in your piece that you wrote. Immigration reform, are we going to see bipartisan immigration reform that is going to have some real answers?
I sure hope so. I think the time has come. I think that the midterm elections really swung things around. A lot of the Republicans who were anti-immigrant lost.
Immigrant bashers,
Immigrant bashers, they lost, and some of them lost their powerful positions in Congress. I think now is the time for reconciliation, for a bipartisan bill. And I think the bill that they're working on, the one that eliminates all three tiers, three categories of illegal immigrants, where it was basically going to force all these immigrants to create false documents to prove that they've been here longer than 5 years.
Some people would say, so you want to prevent document fraud, so let's put everybody on the pathway to citizenship. That's a little, that kind of is indicative of how crazy the whole system is.
But if you don't put them on the path to citizenship, what are you doing? You're leaving a whole population of illegal immigrants in the country. Do you want to get rid of them, deport them all, or give them all a legalization plan?
Do we think we can get bipartisan agreement on anything on immigration next year?
I think there will be some agreement on it. I still believe personally that the most important thing is to stop the continuing illegal immigration. Then we can figure out what to do with those who are already here. But until we stop more people from coming, we're only postponing the problem to another generation, as we did 20 years ago.
Is the public tiring of it too, I wonder?
I don't know if the public's tiring of it or not. The public certainly are not tiring of the whole Homeland Security part of it. And I think the key thing that I think I'm concerned about is just what Michael's point is. I don't think anybody knows what to do with the 11 million who are here, and I think that's the difficulty. But we do need to stop future illegals coming in, and we need to basically make sure that our borders are secure, and I think that's what I'm afraid the bill is not ready to address that.
Okay, Ed Rollins, Michael Goodwin, Miguel Perez, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Happy New Year to all of you. Good weekend.